Here we are looking at Unit 7, Lesson 12, which is interpreting points on a coordinate plane. Our learning target for this lesson is to examine what points on the coordinate plane can tell us. And our intentions for this is so that we can explain how rational numbers represent balances in a money context, and to explain what points in a four-quadrant coordinate plane represent in a situation, and also to plot points in a four-quadrant coordinate plane to represent situations and solve problems. Taking a look over at slide 3, we can see that we're asked here to label each point on the coordinate plane with the appropriate letter and the ordered pair. You'll notice if you do scroll down from here that you can see the ordered pairs along with their coordinates. So from here, we can easily just start by either going by letters or by picking a point and seeing which one matches to it. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and use my text tool to help me to write it. So instead of using my pencil tool, I will use my text tool. And I see here for the first one, I have, I'll go ahead and start with this point on the very left side, which from the origin, I will always go left and right first. For my x-axis, that'll be my first number. My second number, again, is going to be the one that goes up and down, right? So just keeping in mind that my x-coordinate is my first number. The y-coordinate will give me my second number. And again, this being my x-axis right here, all the way across, and my y-axis up and down. So in this case, my first number, my first coordinate, I do start at 0. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is at -8, and you can see how it does line up here. So my first coordinate would be, or will be, -8. My second coordinate, I'll put a comma after this so that way I can show that I am writing my second coordinate. And you'll notice here that it does land on 4. So my second coordinate will be 4, and that is a +4. Please also notice that I am making sure to put my coordinates within parentheses. Otherwise, it just looks like we're listing a bunch of numbers, and that's not our intention here. And so here I can see that B matches -8, 4, and so I can say that this is point B. Taking a look at this next one right here. Okay. This one right here, I'm going to add my text tool to that as well. And so here, for this next one, I'm noticing that I'm going from my origin -1 to -2, -3, and I'm still going a little bit more, not all the way to -4 though. So this is actually going to be right between -3 and -4, so it looks like about -3.5. And I'm not quite sure what this point is right here, but looking at my choices, -3.5 for my x coordinate does match here with a 0.2, which makes a lot of sense for this one because it doesn't even make it to 1. It's not even halfway through, so 2/10 makes a lot more sense for this one. So this one right here, I'm going to be using the coordinates -3.5 and 0.2. And that is D. Moving on to my next place right here, I have this point, and I see here that I am going to the right first. So to the right first would take me to 3, and going up from here, I do end up at 2. So 3, 2 are my coordinates, and I see that C matches with that. So here I have 3, or for C, I have 3, comma, space, 2. And then I'll close those parentheses, which means to me that my last one should be A, it looks like, and we can check on that to make absolute sure of it. Here it should be at 7, -5.5, and looking at what I see here, I do have it going to the right first to get to 7, and I am going down, so I do have a negative, and it has -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and I see there is half more before I get to -6, so -5.5. There are my 4 points here. Moving on to slide 4, we are now looking at account balances, okay? And something to note about these Basically, when we're looking at opening a bank account in this instance, is what we have, which is called the account balance. And the account balance is basically how much money you have in the account at any given time. Usually when you open up a bank account, you do have to put some money in to start. And so, for example, if you open your bank account with $350 to start, well, your account, we can say, has a balance of 350, and that would be represented with a positive 350 because that's how much you have in the account to begin with. However, there are times that you have to borrow money. Sometimes you end up owing money, or you end up having a loan that you're taking out from the bank. So words like borrow, owing money, again, owe, or also having a loan, those are all amounts that would count for a negative amount. So, for example, if I borrowed $200 from the bank, then my account might show that I have a negative $200 or a negative 200. And that negative, again, just shows that, well, I don't have that money, but I am using that because I'm borrowing that from the bank, right? So here I can use that negative number to represent that amount. Now, in this activity, you're asked to look at this graph first, and you'll notice on this graph that we have here a y-axis with the letter B, and we have a x-axis that has the letter D. So we're calling them B and D to start. It tells us that this graph shows the balance in the bank account over a period of 14 days, and the axis labeled B represents account balance in dollars, so that's this one that goes up and down, and the axis labeled D represents the day. So that means here that I'm looking at $100, for example. This one would be $350. This one would be $400. Over here, I see that this would be day 4 of the account. This would be day 11 in the bank account. This would be day 14 of the bank account. So we're going to use this graph to help us answer these questions. And in this case, I see here that to estimate the greatest account balance and on which day did it occur. And in this case, we are estimating because even though it looks very much like this is at $350 on day 1, there's a chance that that's actually just slightly above what our eye can see. And who knows, it might be at $351 instead. All right, you'll notice here that the day that it has the greatest balance isn't even one of these dates over here, though, or one of these amounts over here. If you take a look closer, there is a number that is higher than these ones, which is right over here. It's on day 14. And so on day 14, what it looks like is that it's almost right in between these two. So I'm going to be looking for a number right between 350 and 400. Again, we're estimating. I'm going to say that this is probably about $375 then. So about $375, and that is on day 14. So do make sure that you answer the entire question. So we're estimating the greatest account balance, and on which day it did occur was on day 14. Okay. See about answering the next on your own. See what you can do first before you continue, so that way you can test and see how well you're understanding what's going on here. Looking at this next question, we're looking for the least account balance now, right? And we're also looking for the day that it did occur. And you'll notice that the least balance was about $90, or actually $90 below the amount. So that would mean that you borrowed $90 about on the 11th day is what I'm seeing. And so here about negative $90 would be the account balance, and that would be on the 11th day. So the least balance was about negative $90, and it did occur on the 11th day. The third question is asking, what does the point 6, negative 50 tell you about the account balance? And if you look at this, we can see here that 6 does take us to the right first. And so here, going to the right first, I do see that that would be the 6th day. And negative 50, which is the point right here, tells me that we are negative $50, or basically we borrowed $50 from the bank. And so what I can say about this is that this entire thing here, 6 negative 50, tells me, so 6 negative 50 tells me that on the 6th day, maybe I can say I borrowed, or whoever it is borrowed $50. And it's quite interesting because notice here again, we're at negative $50, but we're using the positive 50 because we're able to use this word borrowed, which indicates that we really are looking at a negative amount though. And so that kind of lends hand to what's going on here. We're asked to interpret the absolute value of negative 50 in this context. And that's really what's happening here, is that we are actually taking the absolute value of negative 50, which is 50. So we're taking those $50 and we're actually borrowing it. So how we're able to interpret this is that $50 is borrowed, or maybe again, we owe it, or we have a loan of that amount. Any of those words all indicate that that amount of money is what is owed to the bank, or is as referring to our balance in that case. On slide 5, we are now looking at some high temperatures and some low temperatures. So here this coordinate plane does show high and low temperatures in Nome, Alaska over a period of 8 days. The axis labeled T, which you'll notice is our vertical axis right over here. This represents temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit, and the axis labeled D, which again we see is our horizontal axis, it says represents the day. So we notice, for example, this would be 4 degrees Fahrenheit, 6 degrees Fahrenheit. This would be 14 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm also noticing that it looks like we're counting by 2's on this side too. Okay. Over on this side, on the other hand, we're looking at each day. And so on day 1, I'm seeing that my high temperature is 28 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm noticing that my low temperature is 26 degrees Fahrenheit. So my red dot, you'll notice, is what is representing my high temperature for that day, and the blue dot represents the low temperature for that same day. Okay, and so here we're going to be looking for answering these questions based on what we see on this table or in this coordinate plane. And what we do see here is that the warmest high temperature is what we're looking for first. I do notice I have my units here already written for me, so degrees Fahrenheit. So I really am just looking for a number in this case. So what was the warmest high temperature? And the warmest high temperature, looking at all the high temperatures, the one at the most top highest is on day 1, right? And on day 1, we notice the warmest high temperature is 28 degrees Fahrenheit, so I can put 28 here. What was the coldest high temperature? See if you can find it first. So looking at it, right, our high temperatures again are those red dots. This is my low temperature on that same day. So I'm looking for the red dot, basically, that is the lowest of them all. This is the lowest of them all, but again, it's not my high temperature. It's not my red dot. So here I'm looking to see, and I see this one is actually my lowest my coldest high temperature. So I can say here that 2 degrees Fahrenheit is my coldest high temperature. So I'm going to be using this information to help answer this question here, which asks which inequalities compare the warmest and coldest high temperatures. There are a few of these that are correct, but we're only looking at the ones that compare our warmest and coldest high temperatures. So I'm really looking at comparing 28 and 2. Since I'm comparing 28 and 2, I'm looking for the ones that do have only those numbers, 28 and 2. Now, I already know that all of these aren't correct, so we wanted to see, well, which ones are the ones that are correct? Okay, which ones basically are true statements? 28 is greater than 2. That is correct, so I'm going to leave that checked. 2 is less than 28. That's also correct, so I'm also going to leave that one checked. 28 is less than 2 is not a true statement, so I'm going to uncheck that. And so really I have 2 different statements that tell me the same thing, basically that 28 is a greater number than 2 is. Slide 6 is very similar to the one we just completed, so see if you can do this one. This time though, please notice that we are looking for the coldest low temperature and the warmest low temperature. So we're really looking for our low temperatures in this one. And my low temperature on day 1 is shown by the blue dot. My low temperature on day 2 again is shown by the blue dot. So look for your coldest first, your coldest blue dot basically, and then your warmest blue dot. And then see which inequality matches that to. So what is the coldest low temperature? Well, if I'm looking for the coldest, I will look for the one that's furthest down. And if it's a low temperature, I'm going to look for the blue dot that is the furthest down. And in this case, I see this one right here, which is not quite in on the grid line. So what I'm going to have to do is figure out where this is actually at. And so here I can see that it is right between -2 and -4. I am counting by twos again. And so right in the middle of -2 and -4 gives me -3. So my coldest low temperature is -3 degrees Fahrenheit. What is my warmest low temperature? Again, I'm still going to look for a low temperature, so I'm still looking for the blue dots. But I want the warmest, meaning it's going to be the highest, the blue dot I can find. Looking from the top, going down, the highest blue dot is right over here on day 1, and it is at 26 degrees Fahrenheit. So I will enter in 26. Looking at these and to compare the warmest and coldest low temperatures, really I'm looking to compare -3 and 26. So here I see a -2 and 3 and 26. Here is a -3 and 26, and here is a -26, or sorry, a 26 and a -3. And so looking at which ones of these are actually correct, I know I can only actually say this in two ways where they're correct. So let's take a look. Is -3 less than 26? That is a correct statement. Is -3 greater than 26? That is not a correct statement. And just to check, 26 is greater than -3, and that is a correct statement. So there's my answers for that one. Slide 7, we're continuing to look at this graph just one last time, and you'll notice here we're looking for the days. Notice it's possibly plural, meaning there might be more than one. On which days did the largest difference between the high and low temperatures occur? So I'm looking now at the difference between the two temperatures. So for example, right over here, I can see the difference here is only 2 because it only is 2 apart, right? From 28 to 26. There's only 2 degrees difference. Over here, I can see that's 2, 4, 6 degrees difference, and so this would be 6 degrees. So I'm looking for really the one that has the largest difference for this top one. And for this bottom one, something similar is asking which days, though, that has the smallest difference instead. So write down the difference and which days you find those at, so that way we can, and I really want you to think about how you solved for that. How did you figure out the differences? Okay. If you're looking through this, you might notice that on days 3, 6, and 7, they all have the same difference, and it is the largest difference. So on days 3, 6, and 7, they had the largest difference of 10 degrees, right? And here we can see that 10. You can actually count this in several ways. For example, here I can look at this day 3, and I see that it actually starts at, or the high temperature is at 21, and the low temperature is at 11. So I can find the difference by subtracting. But another way I can find the difference is also by using this coordinate grid to actually help kind of count. And in this case, I'm going to skim count by twos, knowing, for example, that here from one center to another center will be every 2, right? So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So I could actually just count the difference going across, just like we can on a number line, right? Same thing here for day 6. I notice there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And for day 7, again, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay. Um, the day with the smallest difference between the high and low temperatures was just day 1. There was only one day that has the smallest. On day 1, it was the smallest difference, and that was of only 2 degrees on that day. So here you'll notice is some of the other days are pretty close. For example, right over here, day 8, except that's not just 2, it does go down half more. So we're really looking at 3 degrees difference here. And here looks pretty close too, but notice again, it does go more than just one of these tick marks, meaning that this is 2, and then another halfway would be 3. So from 10 to 13 is 3 difference, right? Please notice on slide 9, you do have your summary here. So if you're looking to study, this is a great place to go so you don't have to necessarily go through the entire lesson. Obviously, looking at the activities can help you to review exactly how to work through some of these problems, but the summary does give you a lot of information about what we've done throughout it too. Okay, so that might be a good place to even start. Please make sure you are working to complete your cool down slides also, so that way we can see how exactly you're doing with this on your own. If you get things wrong on the cool down, that's okay. Our goal is to see where we're at so that way we can use that information to help actually improve where we're at and get to a better understanding of it too. All right, and that is lesson 12 of Unit 7.